And I think he's learned that what we did was far more appropriate than he ever gave us credit for while he was a candidate. So I think he's learned from experience. I thought the president handled it well. I'm not an Obama supporter by nature, but I thought this was one of his better efforts.
A mellower, if not quite kinder and gentler former Vice President Dick Cheney with some nice words, at least a few of them, for President Obama.
Kind words for President Obama. It really is a new day, and Top Line begins right now.
Hello and welcome to ABC News Top Line. I'm Rick Klein.
And I'm Jonathan Karl.
Every day is a new day right here at noon Eastern, where we bring you the latest in politics. Every day it's twitter.com/Rick Klein, twitter.com/John Karl. And speaking of new days, the Congress is coming back to town for some substantive work. John, what do you know?
We're going to start with destroy the bill. Republicans are keeping a key campaign promise, maybe the most important campaign promise they made during the campaign, saying that they will have a vote to repeal the entire health care law. Now, Rick, what's interesting to see as this goes on is just how the rhetoric is going to be. We kind of know where the votes are. There's not a lot of drama there, but we're already hearing out of the Speaker of the House talk of destroying the bill. But it still is the repealing the Job-Killing Health Care Act. That's the name of the bill.
Yeah, that's actually the title of it. A little bit clunky, but certainly there's no question about the meaning on that. And of course, the next question will be what Republicans do, and we'll get into this a little bit later once the repeal effort falls short. Next up today, Conrad bye-bye. Forget Brett Favre, forget Regis. The big news is that Kent Conrad, the Democratic senator from North Dakota, is announcing his retirement at the end of 2012. Democrats just went through this with another Democratic senator, Byron Dorgan, announcing his retirement. That was an easy Republican pickup, and in the early stages of this one, it looks like it's probably going to be another one, John, in 2012.
Rick, what are you talking about? You told me you were going to do the big retirement of the day. It's Regis bye-bye. I mean, what is going on? I mean, really? John, you're talking about Ken Conrad on the day that Regis Philbin announced his retirement? Are you out of your mind?
I thought Brett Favre was the big retirement, but this is a chance for you, John. You're from South Dakota. I think that's almost North Dakota. You have a chance to go back there and run, no?
Easy on that. But I will give you one stat. In 2004, before Tom Daschle lost his seat, there were 6 members of the House and Senate from North Dakota and South Dakota. 5 of them were Democrats. 5 of the 6 in the Dakotas delegation, so to speak. Now there will be only 1 left after Kent Conrad, assuming he is replaced by a Republican, and that is of course Senator Johnson. We'll see if he gets lonely over there from South Dakota. Next up, Rick, Macaca comeback, or is it make a comeback? This is about George Allen is getting back in. He's going to try to get his seat back in the Senate, gearing up for a challenge against, well, whoever it's going to be. We still don't know if there's going to be a rematch there. We still don't know how it's going to play out, but we know that George Allen is back in the game and wants to get his Senate seat back.
And the big question will be initially for him, is he conservative enough for it? There's already a Tea Party candidate, Jamie Radke, we had right here on Top Line last week, who's in the race and has been out there blasting away. She's not going anywhere just because George Allen wants his old job back. And finally today, this is the Top Line. John tried to steal Newt's advice. Newt Gingrich, of course, known for his moderation and his quiet talk. And it's nice that he had some advice for Sarah Palin this morning on Good Morning America. Take a look.
She's got to slow down and be more careful and think through what she's saying and how she's saying it. There's no question that she's become more controversial.
Only friendly advice, I'm sure, John.
Yeah, and there's something just beautiful about Newt Gingrich offering the advice that somebody needs to be very careful about what they say and slow down. It's beautiful. But now we are joined by somebody who is always careful in what he says, but is never too slow. Congressman Steve King from the state of Iowa. Thank you so much for joining us here. This is really your moment. This is your bill to repeal the Health Care Act. But we know this is ultimately not going to go anywhere. It's not going to pass the Senate. The president's not going to sign it into law. So I want to ask you what Plan B is. How much damage do you think you can do to the Health Care Act by taking it apart bit by bit as Congress moves forward?
This is on schedule, and it's the sequence that I laid out clear last March to get to this point where we could pass a repeal in the House. And that marker needs to go down. It does have a chance in the Senate. If we can force a vote in the Senate, I believe it actually will result in a repeal in the Senate. The president would veto. So
60 votes in the Senate?
I think that there may be a procedural way to do it on a simple majority. They sent some of it to us on a simple majority, you might remember. So I'm going to call on them to find that procedure and push that vote. If that's the case, we have 23 Democrats that are up for re-election. Well, I guess 22 now, as of this just announcement that you've just made on Kent Conrad. So already we're getting the message. I think that there's a chance for that repeal to pass in the Senate, but the veto on the part of the president tells us this, that we do have to go back now and shut off funding in each of our appropriations bills so that we prohibit the implementation or enforcement of Obamacare at every step of the way. If we do that, we can get to the 2012 election where we'll elect a president, in my view, who will want to sign the repeal of Obamacare as one of the first acts of his new presidency.
What does that mean in function? If you stop funding, does that mean that some of the insurance reforms that went into effect wouldn't happen? Would it essentially be a repeal? Can you do almost a full repeal just by starving the funding?
We could bring about, in effect, a full repeal by stopping the funding. It just stops the collection of taxes, and it stops the expenditure of the money, and it stops the enforcement. But the problem with putting it on freeze is if we just freeze it, then the authorization for Obamacare exists in perpetuity, and it will grow back on us like a malignant tumor would grow back on us. So I want to pull it all out by the roots. That's what the vote is tomorrow and the debate today. And then the unfunding through the appropriations process will be long, it will be hard, and it will require some statesmanship in this process. It's not going to be easy. It's always been a strategy that takes us till 2013 to finally pull it out by the roots.
No, the Department of Health and Human Services is out today saying that there are up to 129 million Americans who have the kind of pre-existing conditions that can be used to deny them coverage by an insurance company. Are you willing to go to millions of Americans and say, look, no more? You were given a guarantee of coverage under this bill, and we're going to take away that guarantee?
Well, I'd say first that 129 million number, it's a fresh new number this morning, and the language that you've used to describe it, which is that could be used to deny health care, actually could be used to deny health insurance. That number needs to be looked at far more skeptically. I think it's much less than that.
Even if it's 20 million, even if it's 10 million, even if it's a million, are you willing to go to those people and say, look, this law was going to guarantee you coverage, guarantee insurance companies had to cover you, and say we're going to take away that guarantee?
I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to say we can't afford it. They all know we can't afford it. We have advocated for policies within the states that set up high-risk pools. Iowa has one. Many states have those. And we can support those from the federal level. That's a far better solution than taking over all of the healthcare system in the United States and running it from the federal government. We don't need to go there. We do not need to expand the dependency class in America, take away the doctor-patient relationship, and set up health insurance policies that we're imposing upon people whether they want them or not, but still deny their ability to buy a catastrophic policy, for example. There's many things we can do as Republicans, and one of them is expand the health savings accounts so that they can become lifetime savings accounts that convert into pension plans and one day be able to buy a Medicare replacement policy, taking millions of people off of the entitlement rolls. That's just one idea. To be able to buy insurance across state lines, so someone in New Jersey that's paying $6,000 a year, a young man, can go to Kentucky and buy a policy for about $1,000 a year. This competition will help. The portability is necessary. We need to address the tort reform component of this that is somewhere between 3.5% and 8.5% of the overall health care costs. It could run over $200 billion a year. None of that's addressed with Obamacare. All of it we will address here with this Republican Congress when we see the committees go to work on the resolution that's coming up on Thursday.
Congressman King, as you know, there's been a big focus on the use of political rhetoric, language in debate over the last week and a half or so. I came across just this morning an interview you gave to Human Events where you talked about the health care bill is driven by, quote, an irrational leftist lust for socialized medicine. You went on to say they don't see the country the way that we do. I'm wondering about that kind of language. Are those the kind of characterizations that you think we should be more careful about, or how do you back that up to say that the left doesn't see the country the same way? What's the suggestion there?
Well, I'd say first that, the word lust is more associated with love than it is violence. So I didn't think that was an irrational comment at all. I just thought it described the scenario that we're in. And I have an irrational lust to love the Constitution and fiscal responsibility and individualism. So, I don't think that's sharp rhetoric. I've been called a lot of names on the floor of the House of Representatives, and I do think that we have a responsibility to tone that part of it down. But I do not think that the anomalous tragedy in Tucson has a relevance to the political dialogue here, and I don't think there's any evidence to that effect.
Okay, so where are you going to sit? State of the Union address.
I hear that Justice Alito's seat will be open. It's unlikely that I will find my way down there.
I think we can count on that being open, yeah.
But it's going to be pretty hard to find a seat in the place, and so hard to mix up seats between Democrats and Republicans. I'm going to go down and try to find a seat, and if people sit next to me and they're Democrats, that's great.
Okay,
That's great.
but seriously, what do you make of this idea, though? I mean, do you think this is I mean, it's obviously a symbolic gesture. Do you like it? Do you not like it? This idea of Democrats and Republicans sitting, you know, mixing it up?
Well, if my memory serves me correctly, they tried that once before, and some of the Democrats came and sat through on the Republican side. It was an effort to try to lead the standing ovations in a different way. I thought it was choreographed by the speaker at the time.
Yeah.
But there's a real American art to watching a State of the Union address, and it's important to see who leads the ovations, who sits down, who doesn't applaud, who does. There's a whole science to that, and that would scramble the whole thing if we went, counted 1, 2, 1, 2, and sat down in an even balance on the floor. So
you don't like it?
Let's just let it happen. I don't think it's going to change the dialogue.
All right. Congressman Steve King, a Republican of Iowa. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.